This board shows a rigid 4-4-2 defensive block dissolving into an asymmetrical 4-3-3 attacking shape. In modern international football, tournament survival often comes down to this specific transformation: how strictly a team maintains structural discipline and how efficiently their opponent breaks it. 3 critical group stage matchups test this dynamic perfectly: Argentina against Austria, France facing Iraq, and Norway taking on Senegal. This dashboard outlines the exact stakes heading into these 90-minute blocks. In Group J, defending champions Argentina and Austria both sit comfortably on 3 points. Meanwhile, Group I sees Norway 0 and fighting for their tournament lives. Look at the mathematical pathways extending from these standings. Securing a top 2 finish here guarantees advancement and a highly favorable draw in the round of 32. For the teams at the bottom, anything short of a win means relying on the slim hope of a third-place qualification spot. Success in the group stage is a product of mathematical pitch control, dominating half spaces, establishing midfield pivots, and dictating the game's spatial geometry. Argentina arrives with an 8-game winning streak and a system built entirely around fluidity. They operate in a flexible hybrid shape, constantly oscillating between a 4-3-3 and a 4-4-2, depending on the phase of possession. This chart compares Argentina's heavy offensive output against Austria's recent performance metrics. While Argentina easily generated 3 goals, Austria's victory over Jordan was far tighter, requiring a late own goal and a penalty. Their expected goals point to a cagey defensive setup. Ralf Rangnick approaches the game from the exact opposite direction. His Austrian side strictly adheres to a structured 4-2-3-1. This map highlights Austria's forward pressing zones. Instead of absorbing pressure, they use specific triggers, like a backward pass to an Argentinian center-back, to launch intense, coordinated presses. The goal is to win the ball deep in Argentina's half and immediately counter. The decisive clash happens in the center of the pitch. Marcel Sabitzer acts as Austria's primary playmaker and number 10, constantly probing for weaknesses. He runs directly into the operational zone of Argentina's screening pivot. When Austria's fullbacks push high to support the press, they leave isolated channels behind them. If Argentina can bypass the initial wave of pressure, their asymmetric attack will pour into those empty spaces. It is a pure test of structural rigidity against fluid movement. Over in the group of death, the motivations are entirely polarized. France needs a victory to guarantee advancement and lock down the top spot. Iraq, reeling from a 4-1 opening defeat, needs a mathematical miracle to survive. France secures their dominance through heavy midfield possession. They utilize a morphing 4-4-2 that frequently looks like a 4-4-3 in attack, crowding the midfield to dictate the tempo of the match. To avoid another heavy loss, Iraq's tactical response will be purely defensive. Iraq sets up a classic low block with tight banks of 4, eliminating central space. France counters with Rabiot and Koné in a central pivot to recycle possession, then feeds wide players to physically stretch the defense horizontally. That horizontal stretching is intentional. Every time an Iraqi defender steps wide, a micro-gap opens in the center, manufacturing the exact shooting lanes Kylian Mbappé needs to exploit. Iraq's only relief valve in this scenario is Ayman Hussein.
As the sole target man, he has to win long, isolated clearances to launch counterattacks and buy his defense time to breathe. Dismantling a deep, low block is rarely achieved through blunt vertical force. It requires rapid, horizontal ball circulation to exhaust the defense and pull the structure apart. The dynamic shifts completely in our third match. Norway is looking to cement their group control and build momentum, while Senegal, sitting on 0 points, enters a desperate do-or-die scenario. Norway pushes a high defensive line, utilizing direct vertical passing vectors to bypass the midfield. In the central attacking zone, Martin Odegaard orchestrates play, constantly scanning for and exploiting these vertical channels the moment possession is secured. The recipient of those passes is Erling Haaland. With 11 goals in his last 11 competitive matches, he operates as the ultimate vertical threat, continually attacking the space behind the opposing defensive line. To absorb this, Senegal lines up in a reactive 3-5-2 structure. The heavy organizational burden falls directly on Kalidou Koulibaly, who must marshal the backline and cut off Haaland's runs. This map reveals a structural flaw. When Norway's fullbacks support the high press, they leave massive space undefended on the flanks. Senegal's forwards, Mané and Jackson, act as immediate counter-attacking outlets, sprinting into those wide areas. Because Senegal's tournament survival requires a win, they cannot afford to sit back. Their desperation guarantees they will take tactical risks, turning this match into a chaotic, end-to-end clash of transition dynamics. Understanding the tactical setups only covers the first whistle. To see how these matches actually resolve, we have to project how these strategies hold up against 90 minutes of physical execution. This timeline models the predicted match flow and scoring events for all 3 fixtures, mapping exactly when we expect structural discipline to break down. On the Argentina-Austria track, the model forecasts a narrow victory for the favorites.
This projection stems from Argentina's high-intensity opening phases, which typically produce early goals, balanced against Austria's dead ball proficiency, as Sabitzer's deliveries often punish opponents once the initial press begins to tire. In a fixture decided by narrow margins, Lionel Messi's ability to exploit tight spaces makes him the most probable difference-maker and man of the match. Returning to the timeline, the France model shows a concentration of scoring events late in the game. This reflects the physical cost of Iraq's defensive shape, as constant horizontal shifting creates inevitable gaps. France's wide overloads are designed to turn that fatigue into a decisive multi-goal lead. Finally, look at the cluster of events late in the Norway versus Senegal track. As physical exhaustion sets in and the pitch opens up, the data points to a high-scoring 2-2 draw, driven by back-and-forth counterattacks in the final 20 minutes. These specific outcomes will crystallize the round of 32 bracket. They lock in the heavy favorites at the top and officially eliminate the underdogs. Pre-match tactics provide the foundation, but strict rigidity only survives until the reality of player fatigue dissolves the system. Looking at the data, how would you optimally structure a defensive block to neutralize Kylian Mbappe? Let me know your tactical approach in the comments. Ultimate victory in the World Cup doesn't come from drawing up the perfect pre-match plan. It comes from adapting spatial geometry in real time, long after the initial structures have broken down.